Hi, welcome to the 18th annual Sparx City Hop. We are certainly hopping today. My name is Adora, and this is my husband and co-host, Eric.
Hey!
And right around the corner in the beautiful red lolly, the trolley, is Brian.
Yay!
He'll be our skilled and amazing driver for today.
We know these are unprecedented times. However, we could not resist the opportunity to join Sparx and celebrate Cleveland.
And we want to make sure we give a shout out to our terrific sponsor, K&D Real Estate Development and Management Services. All over the greater Cleveland area, they provide residents with comfortable and accommodating living environments, professionally cared for and managed by a terrific staff with a sole purpose. And that purpose is to serve the residents by creating a wonderful sense of community. We'll be pointing out a couple of their properties as we drive by today, in case you enjoy the tour so much that you decide to move right downtown into the heart of Cleveland. I know that's one of our goals.
Our second goal is to show you a bit of the neighborhood of Tremont. Today's tour is going to touch on different places in Tremont. Some of those organizations and establishments are open for business in this era of the pandemic, and some are not. We'll try to note that, but if you feel inspired, as we hope, you'll put on some comfortable shoes and a face mask and go and explore some of those sites that we're going to look at. And with that much said, let's jump on Lolly and go see those sites. So, we're going to start our tour right here in Playhouse Square, the heart of the theater district in Cleveland. It holds a special place in my heart because I'm a theater artist, and this is a really, really lovely place. And a gem and a joy for us to have here in Cleveland. It's marked by a very special structure. Some of you may know that several years ago, Playhouse Square placed an enormous chandelier. It's 8,500 pounds, I believe, of wonderfulness hanging above the corner of East 14th and Euclid. It is the largest outdoor chandelier in the country, which is fitting because this theater complex is the second largest theater complex in the United States outside of New York. It houses 11 separate stages, and two of the organizations that are based here are Cleveland Playhouse, a place very close to my heart, and Great Lakes Theater, another theater very close to my heart. We're very lucky to have two very vibrant theater companies that are based right here in Cleveland, along with all of the theater that's presented through Playhouse Square on the 11 stages.
And don't forget, this is one of the most popular places in Cleveland to take a selfie. Some of the other places that are pretty popular we're going to visit today, and we'll make sure to point them out for you.
All right, so Brian, let's get started. Now, over here to your left is the Hanna Building. The Hanna Building is really renowned for all the theatrical events that toured there, but it's also renowned because it is one of the newer properties of our sponsor, K&D Properties.
Yeah. So the residences at Hanna, the property we were referring to right there, puts you in the perfect location for a night out on the town. With restaurants, shops, and entertainments, and all that Playhouse Square has to offer, you don't have to work too hard to create perfect date night.
Yes.
And if you want to stay at home, that's cool too. All of the 16 different floors in the building feature granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, porcelain tile floors, custom cabinets, and so much more. In the building, there's also a fitness center, a market, a Starbucks, and computer and copy room access. And there's on-site parking. So, best place to live downtown. That's one of them.
There's a number of restaurants in that block right around there. One of them is the Hofbrauhaus.
Yeah.
Hofbrauhaus is noted for its celebration of all things German. German cuisine. You can get schnitzel there, as well as a big, huge pretzel. They also have German music. There's usually a polka band. Yes, my last name is Schmiedel, and so my father, his heart starts to swell whenever he hears a little bit of pa music, and so I'm sure that's in my bones too. So there's German music there, and just a really good time. It also has an outdoor cafe, so safe distancing is a great possibility right there.
Talking about great places to eat, this reminds me that sort of changing continents and directions, there is Aladdin's, one of the fabulous Middle Eastern restaurants in Cleveland. If you're a fan of hummus, tabbouleh, falafel, and shawarma, there are several Aladdin's locations across Northeast Ohio, but this one houses Pita Bakery, or their baking company. So it's a great place to grab some fresh homemade pita, and it's perfect with a little butter melted inside.
I think we're going to get a shot of Aladdin's as we come right past here. You can also find Aladdin's products in your grocery stores.
There!
They are made right here in Cleveland, right on Prospect Avenue. As we come along towards East 9th Street, we're going to come to a historic place of pain and joy. Now, as a native Clevelander, I know that we have a sort of love-hate relationship with our sports teams. We, of course, all love them dearly, but we hate it when they lose. The good thing about the Cleveland sports, well, there's many good things about Cleveland sports. But one of the things that I cherish are, of course, the players. This is the baseball team here at Progressive Field, and our baseball team made some serious national attention in many different ways. But in 1947, we made a big move forward when Larry Dobey joined the team. Larry Dobey came to the Cleveland team in 1947 and really, in many ways, lifted all the bars. By the next year, 1948, he was one of the key members of the Cleveland team, along with Satchel Paige, who joined the team in 1948, as they went on and won the World Series in that year. And if I remember right from my history studies, Larry Dobey made a key home run in the third or fourth game that sort of changed the tide for that particular game and for the entire series. So big cheers for Larry Dobey.
And we're going to see a statue of Larry Dobey when we circle back around.
Yes, right.
And got some special things to say about the bridge.
So we're now coming up on the Hope Memorial Bridge. This Hope Memorial Bridge used to be known as the Carnegie Superior Bridge. However, several years ago, it was renamed for the father of entertainer Bob Hope. His father was a stonemason, and as you may have seen as we started our journey across the Hope Memorial Bridge, stonemasonry plays a great part. There are 8 different guardians of transportation located at the 4 corners of this bridge. Each one of those was handcrafted by stonemasons, and each one of those guardians has a different form of transportation. So if you get a chance next time you're driving along this border between the east side and the west side of the Cleveland, take a peek at one of those, take a stop, and take a peek at one of those guardians and see what they're holding right there. It's interesting too, as I found out fairly recently, somewhere in the mid-70s, there was an engineer, county engineer, who thought that they were ghastly, he called them ghastly, and started a movement to try and remove the guardians. Thankfully, citizens got together and petitioned, and now they're on the National Registry of Landmarks, so they can't be removed at all.
And shameless plug, as the Indians consider changing their team name, one of the new possibilities is indeed the Cleveland Guardians. So that name has my vote.
Amen. We're now heading right into Tremont. This is a very vibrant neighborhood in Cleveland's west side. Tremont has a long history here. What I found was very fascinating is that because it has such a long history here in Cleveland, it also has a number of names. It was originally called Cleveland Heights. Then it was renamed to University Heights. It was renamed to University Heights in part because in the mid-19th century, about 1850 to 1853, Cleveland University, the first university in Cleveland, was founded in the Tremont neighborhood. So it was called University Heights. The university didn't last particularly long.
About a year.
Yeah, 3 years. And then it was the name changed to the South Side. So it was the South Side for the longest time until the 70s when it was changed to Tremont.
And as we think about the people who lived in Tremont, the neighborhood was settled initially by Connecticut Yankees in the early 1800s, and then followed by German and Irish immigrants in the 1860s. And by the 1890s, the area saw a large influx of Eastern Europeans, especially from Poland and Russia. So Tremont's immigration patterns really mirror that of the city. After the Ukrainians settled here, people from Greece, Lebanon, and Syria also settled here, and African American and Appalachian families came along later or more recently with immigrant families from Latin American countries.
Really, Tremont really matches this idea of transformation that we see happening in Cleveland again and again. We're going to notice when we see different organizations and establishments here in Cleveland, this idea of transformation, repurposing and retransforming and recreating and rethinking. That's really a cornerstone of modern Cleveland in the year 2020. And speaking of the name Cleveland, we're coming up on a key element of modern Cleveland. The Visitors Bureau, I think, started this movement to create these Cleveland scripts. These are, I believe they're 12 feet long, 16 feet long, aluminum scripts of the word Cleveland. They're in 5 different places around Cleveland. Here on the west side, they're here in the Tremont area, and over in Edgewater Park.
And right before we got to the script, we also passed Forest City Brewery, and we wanted to to note them. They're one of the they have one of the oldest outdoor beer gardens in the city and maybe the state, and it features Big Red, which is the oldest red mulberry tree in the state. Also over there was the Velvet Tango Room. So as you can sort of note, when Eric talks about Renaissance, one of the things that's part of the Renaissance of Tremont has been small businesses.
We're coming formally into Tremont, and what's fascinating about this part of Cleveland, Cleveland is well noted for its collection of churches, but in this 1 mile square block, there are more churches than any other 1 mile square block per capita in the United States.
Have we passed? Oh, is that it? Yes, that's it. So on the left is Annunciation. Is that it?
No, we passed Annunciation. It's over there on the right. I was talking about all the churches.
Okay, so we passed Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church, and one of the interesting things, obviously, with so many immigrant groups coming into this area, is that everybody brought their church, and they built them because that was the way their community felt comfortable. Over 5,000 Greek-born residents settled in this area by 1920. So Cleveland then had one of the largest Greek communities in Ohio. In 1912, Greeks established a formal church at the corner that we just passed, which was the heart of what was then called Greek Town. As the congregation grew, the church members replaced the original structure with the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church. And it held its first services in 1919. Did we pass St. Augustine yet?
We passed St. Augustine a couple blocks ago, and in fact, we just now have passed Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'll mention Pilgrim Congregational Church because it has a long storied history here in Cleveland of religious service, but it's also a cultural footprint here in Cleveland in that it has a number of two different theater spaces, a small, almost rehearsal space, and then like a 99 seat theater that I've seen productions at. In fact, worked at a production over at Pilgrim. So it's not only a religious site, but it's also a cultural site right there.
And it's on the National Registry of Historic Places. Did I miss Grumpy's?
Yeah, we'll catch Grumpy's when we come back down on West 14th. So we're heading on the west side of the Tremont area, and we're going to be heading towards an icon in all of Cleveland history. So in 1966, Gene Shepard published a short story that explored the adventures of a boy named Ralphie and his attempt to try to get the Red Ryder BB gun. In 1983, this was transformed and adapted into a film, and of course, we all know the film as A Christmas Story. But there's a couple of really interesting facts about the movie that I would love to share with you. So the first is that there was a big push. The short story is set in Indiana, so there was a big search to try and figure out where to set the film. And as I understand it, as many as 20 different sites were scouted. But they chose Cleveland in great part because the Higbees downtown, when Higbees was still a store downtown in the early 80s, agreed to be a partner and agreed to allow the filming to happen. So if you know the film, there are 3 key scenes that happen in the Higbees. The first is the storefront when he first sees the Red Ryder gun at the very beginning of the film. He sees it in the Higbees storefront. The second one is when there's a parade. Now, what's interesting about that parade is, as I understand it, the parade was filmed at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because they wanted the environment to be dark, and they could also block out all the other buildings. So they had a little bit more of a timeless period quality to it. And the third scene that was filmed in the Higbees was, of course, the Santa scene. And what's interesting too is that slide. Higbees kept that slide. That's, Ralphie goes famously goes no down that slide. That slide was kept at Higbees for a number of years after the film was made. But the thing that we're turning on to right now is the site of the Christmas Story House and Museum. It is a site.
There behind us.
First, we see the Bumpus house,
which you only know if you're a real fanatic, and you can actually rent this house for a night or two. There's an apartment up on the 3rd floor, and when tours are not being given, you can have the run of the place. For a bit of hillbilly themed fun, you could stay at one of the 2 suites nearby as well. If you recall, the Bumpus family lived near Ralphie, and their dogs from hell invaded his home and ate their Christmas. How can I say, do you recall? Everybody remembers the Bumpus dogs.
Okay, so yeah, but how many Bumpus dogs were there?
Oh, God.
785.
That's not true.
That's the way the story goes. So there's the Christmas Story House and Museum. Across the street from the Christmas Story House and Museum is the gift shop. The gift shop is closed right at the moment, but I believe you can still arrange for tours of the house. And of course, walk around in this neighborhood right here. Now, Christmas Story also has a special place in Cleveland lore because the Cleveland Playhouse, Cleveland's regional theater and one of the first regional theaters in the United States, has had a classic in its production of A Christmas Story. It occurs every year on the stages, now up the stages of the Allen Theater, and it's a great way for families to get together and celebrate Christmas and theater and stories, and a bit of history. If I remember right, there's a Higby sign that appears when Ralphie makes his Mecca journey to ask Santa.
And ahs.
Y'all do, as Clevelanders, we love Higbies.
So talking about hooting and awing, as we retrace our footsteps to another part of Tremont, I want to make sure that we remember that it's the only urban neighborhood connected directly to the Towpath Trail, which is part of an 87-mile trail that follows the historic route of the Ohio and Erie Canal. It's perfect for walking, running, biking, and other activities, but it's also perfect to get Eric on his hobby horse. He knows more about the canals than anyone I know.
Well, I had the great opportunity through the Cleveland Playhouse to work on a brand new play about the Erie and the Ohio and Erie Canal. The Ohio and Erie Canal was constructed between the mid-1820s and the mid-1830s. Now, what's really important to know about the Ohio and Erie Canal is that the canals, here's a side note, the canals were first thought of by George Washington. George Washington had thought of them as a means to transport goods around the country once he realized how big the United States was, even at that stage in the 18th century. But in the 1820s and 30s, the canals were constructed and really transformed Ohio and Cleveland in particular from a sort of backwoods kind of area into a real metropolis. Because once the canals were constructed, you could go take goods from New York, which came from Europe or other parts of the world, through the Erie Canal, through the Great Lakes to Cleveland, take them on the canal, follow the canal all the way to Portsmouth, which is on the Ohio River. Then you can take the goods from Portsmouth on the Ohio River to Cincinnati and distribute them throughout the rest of the country. So all of a sudden, Ohio became the center of all this commerce.
Silicon Valley, if you will.
It is the Silicon Valley because there were secondary industries that happened. You know, they had to build boats. They had to have goods being moved from one boat to the other boat.
Livestock.
And the boats themselves were kind of like small little businesses. So if you could save up enough money and buy a boat, you could, it's like having a truck on the turnpike. You could have your own business. You could buy goods, transport them down to Portsmouth, sell those goods, and you could have your own business in a way that had never happened before. So all of a sudden, Cleveland in the 1840s, 1850s became a real hotspot of innovation, and that carried Cleveland on through the rest of the 19th century.
I think we're coming up.
There we are,
Grumpy's. Yes, I would be remiss if I did not talk about Grumpy's. I'm going to look at my notes real fast.
So Grumpy's has a wonderful
it has some of the best breakfast food in the entire city. It's one of my favorite places to go. It's really small, but the omelets, benedicts, and pancakes, French toast, country fried steak, biscuits, anything you could want on a Sunday morning.
Pumpkin pancakes.
Oh yes, the pumpkin pancakes are pretty good. You want to order early, especially during these pandemic times, because they get busy fast.
I think there's a cafe, a sort of outdoor cafe part of it.
And there's Pilgrim.
And then we're on the other side of Grumpy's is Pilgrim Congregational Church, which I mentioned to you before.
Oh, and we're coming up on Lincoln Park.
Yes, Lincoln Park.
So this is another place that has some amazing Cleveland history. The land was purchased in 1850 by Thurza Skinner Pelton and her husband Brewster. Thurza was the primary benefactor of the new Cleveland University that Eric talked about when we entered Tremont, and she wanted the land to be used for campus buildings. She was very intentional about that. But she died unexpectedly, sadly, in 1953, and the school closed only after 1853, and the school closed after only 2 years and 11 graduates. Her husband kept the land private and built a fence around it to keep everybody off. But the angry neighbors who wanted it made public destroyed the fence repeatedly. He put it up, they tear it down. He put it up, they tear it down. But after his death and several long legal battles, the city purchased the park in 1879 and opened it as the South Side Park. Remember what Eric told us in the beginning about the names of Tremont? So this is back when it was South Side in 1880. And they had a huge barbecue on Independence Day, and there it was, Lincoln Park.
Well, no, Lincoln Park then was named in honor of President Lincoln, who made several trips. He made, you may know if you know your history, when President Abraham Lincoln was elected, he made a Mecca journey from Springfield to Washington, stopping in Cleveland. Then, sadly, after he was assassinated, his body was transported and was in repose at Public Square. Thank you. So the park was named in 1896 on the celebration of the centennial of Cleveland. That park was renamed Lincoln Park, and this remains Lincoln Park ever since.
So we don't say we're going to the South Side.
No, we say we're going to Tremont, where there's Lincoln Park.
All right. So
now we're coming up to the Merrick House. Did we pass the Merrick House here?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, so Merrick House, I will just briefly mention the Merrick House. Thank you, Brian. The Merrick House is a sort of cornerstone here in the Tremont neighborhood. It services the community around here pretty much from birth to old age. It has intergenerational programming and really has reflected the changing dynamics and the changing cultures that are located here in Tremont, and it has consistently been a beacon of light for this community here.
And we just turned on Professor. This is one of the streets that Eric talked about. They were named for that Cleveland University that used to occupy this area. Today, Professor is known for the large number of bars, restaurants, boutiques, galleries that line both sides of the street.
And it became nationally known because Lolita, Michael Simon's restaurant, was before sadly it caught fire.
And many of the restaurants on Professor are closed. They are still open for takeout. So yeah, make sure to order early.
So we're seeing the Flying Monkeys right there in honor of the Wizard of Oz.
And Fahrenheit right there. Yep.
Fahrenheit, Clevelanders will know, has a national rep, has been reviewed and cheered about on the national level in a number of publications.
It's got sort of a Asian, American Asian fusion focus.
There's Tremont Scoops over here, a wonderful
Yummy.
place for ice cream, and it's now open, I see. Socially distanced.
It's started by 3 friends, and they serve cones, sundaes, milkshakes, regional novelties, and even some vegan treats.
Ah, vegan, very good.
Did we get Treehouse yet?
Yeah, Treehouse is right here.
Treehouse
to
is
their
right here. Irish pub, known for their perfectly poured Guinness.
We have a wonderful outdoor cafe there.
Yep.
Patio, safely distanced.
And somewhere we're going to pass Cafe Social, Latino Americano. A great place to to have conversations both in Spanish and English. Coda, which is also around here, operates under the masterful eye of Chef Dante Bacuzzi, world famous gourmand, who's come home to practice his craft in Cleveland.
It's also a great place to hear music. So Dora and I saw a wonderful
there's
artist.
High and Dry.
There's High and Dry. A wonderful artist named Donald Malloy, as he performed here in Cleveland about a year ago. He's based in New York, but he comes back to perform, and Coda is one of his spaces. It's a great kind of cozy, intimate space to experience music and wonderful cocktails and treats.
High and Dry has bowling and arcade games too.
Right, that is the best you can bowl.
Yes, and Barrio, we passed Barrio. I think you can build your own taco there with over 30 fresh ingredients. And we just climb Cleveland. Was that Climb?
Oh, Climb Cleveland, which is a great place to do. They have a number of climbing walls. They also, I believe, do yoga there. So if you need to, these are stressful times. So if you need to get centered again, that's a wonderful place to think of.
And
right here.
They have blues dancing.
Oh,
That's
blues dancing,
more
of
my
course,
speed,
yeah.
yes. And boom, look what's Parallax. Sushi and other entrees with a Pan-Asian flair. They have an extended patio hours, so make sure you take advantage of it. So I think we just turned, what did we turn on? We're
11. We're on 11.
We're on West 11. Thank you, Brian. So we passed a local building, Lemco Hall. It was used to film the wedding reception scene in the 1978 film The Deer Hunter.
What's really interesting, though, is well, that's fascinating too, and of course, a great part of Cleveland history. And you can watch that scene. It's a very touching scene in the film. But I learned that the Lemco is a region of southeastern Poland, and that the people from that region came here. And at one point, the largest community of Lemcos were right here in Cleveland, and that's why they had the Lemco Hall.
So Brian's pulling over so we can catch our breaths. And if you look right over there, that is the west end of a very famous Cleveland destination, Sokolowski's University Inn. They've been serving Polish and Eastern European food since 1923. Salisbury steak, chicken paprikash, stuffed cabbage, pierogies, all served by third-generation owners and siblings who continue in the tradition of their grandparents. We're good to go.
Well, wave goodbye to the pierogies as we continue.
I know,
on.
I actually wanted to jump off, but no time. So some quick Cleveland
Cleveland
facts.
time.
Yes, some Cleveland time. So Cleveland was the first city to be lit electrically in 1879. So sometimes we get down on ourselves as Clevelanders. And so these are some of the things that we should hold ourselves up high about. We had the first electric traffic signal. Even though many of us maybe ignore those traffic signals. Wait, Cleveland? Well,
There it is. There's our
again.
Cleveland script time.
And I know Eric wanted to say something about them.
Sure. And does anybody know who created the first, who designed the first traffic sign?
Garrett Morgan.
Garrett Morgan. Yes, of course. Cleveland's own Garrett Morgan.
So not only are we the home of rock and roll, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we're also the birthplace of the term rock and roll. It started right here in Cleveland. It was coined by Cleveland disc jockey Alan
Freed. Who my father would listen to when he was a boy, the Moondog Alan.
That's right. And potato chips were first mass produced right here in Cleveland. which is why we seem to have a perpetual case of the munchies.
That's right.
Lifesavers?
Lifesavers right here in Cleveland, right?
That's right. You can thank businessman Clarence A. Crane, who wanted to solve the ever-troubling problem, I mean, I think about this all the time, of candy melting. He used a machine that pharmacists use to make round, flat pills, punched a hole in the center of the candy connection, and called it a lifesaver. Ha 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 ha.
Sometimes, when you need a little fresh breath. As we formally leave the Tremont neighborhood, I also want to mention a tidbit of Cleveland history that I just recently learned. So we know that Ohio provided many soldiers for the Civil War. What I didn't realize was that Cleveland had 6 different camps training those soldiers. The one that lasted the longest throughout most of the war was called Camp Cleveland, and it was located in Tremont, on the north sort of cusp of Tremont. And I think upwards to there was maybe 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers that came through there in their training. Also, then when the Civil War ended, many of the soldiers from Ohio were released that came through Cleveland to get their payment and their papers. So Cleveland has a long history of being connected to the Civil War and to events of the United States.
So as we leave Tremont, I also want to chime in, and we did not get a chance to point out the offices of Tremont West Development Corporation. They were established in 1979 to help build a better Tremont by creating an inclusive community, unified neighborhood, and to promote tourism to the area. You can tell they've done a great job. They manage the infrastructure improvements, assist retail businesses, provide aid for home repairs, and plan and manage community events. So that would be a great website to check out before you explore Tremont.
Also, speaking about unity, we're going back over the Cuyahoga River. As the native Clevelanders know, Cleveland's made up of the east side and the west side. It's separated by this river called the Cuyahoga River. There are many cultural differences about both sides, and one of our tours we talked about some of the historic reasons for that, but it also plays a part in my life. It may have played a part in many Clevelanders' lives. My mother was from the Near East Side, and then she eventually lived in Cleveland Heights. My father was from the Near West Side, over by the Sioux. So I always think of my parents as the Romeo and Juliet of Cleveland, as they had to cross the river. And in fact, quite honestly, when my father was dating my mother, he had to go all the way down into the flats because there was no freeway that connected them. So we had to go all the way down into the flats, back up to the east side, and travel through the east side to get to my mother, who was at that time living in Cleveland Heights.
So as you explore Tremont, one of the things to think about is if you're a native Clevelander, do you have an east side, west side story in your history?
I'm sure you do.
So we're going to be turning on East 9th in a little bit. And many of us remember recently, actually, March 20th, although it feels like a lifetime ago, it was not. But Sherwin-Williams revealed that they'd be moving their headquarters to downtown Cleveland. They're already in downtown Cleveland, but they'd be staying in downtown Cleveland and moving just a bit northwest of where we are now. It would be on almost 7 acres of parking lot space, and they plan to build a new complex that could open in 2023. So Cleveland won out after a nationwide search launched by this 150-year-old company, and nearby Brecksville will be the site for a new research and development facility as well. The company currently employs about 4,400 people in Northeast Ohio, and hopes that the expansion project will bring more jobs and more economic growth to the downtown area.
So I have a connection to Sherwin-Williams also. I'm sure many people do here in Cleveland. One of my uncles, one of my dear uncles, Uncle Jeff, was an employee of Sherwin-Williams and really enjoyed working for the company. They did right by him. Speaking about doing right, we just passed satellite of Cuyahoga Community College, Tri-C, as we Clevelanders often think of it. It is a dynamic college experience and one of the most vibrant community colleges in the country. Not only does it provide a lot of educational opportunities, it's also a beacon of cultural support and celebration as we have the Tri-C Jazz Fest.
And I think they just wrapped up one of their pandemic
Online celebrations. Yeah, in fact, we saw it.
Yeah,
Dora
last
found
week.
it, and we were
Yeah.
watching it, streaming it on our phones, and cheering for Tri-C all at the same time.
So going back to something to look forward to, we hope that on one of the next Sparks in the City tours, we'll be showing you that new Sherwin-Williams facility. But I know, Eric, we're about to be able to
Yes,
point
so
out.
we just turned on East 9th Street, so we're going to get a great view of a celebration of a player that I had mentioned on the Cleveland team. So Larry Dobey is over here to your left right now. There's a little courtyard right here by the
Wait
stadium.
for it.
Yeah, there
And
he is.
there he is.
Yes.
Who's the other guy?
He's got, well, Larry Dobey is the one who's just, I love it because it's like he's just
Getting up.
He's just hit the ball for a long one, and now he's running. There's a statue for Bob Feller there too, Cleveland's ace pitcher during a big portion of its history. We're going further north on East 9th Street. We're going to be coming to another part of Cleveland history. For me, so many relatives that have worked at different institutions in Cleveland. But I have on my Schmiedel side of the family an Aunt Kay, and one of the things that my Aunt Kay did was she was the soup woman for the Halley store. When Halley Brothers had their department store famously in downtown Cleveland. And that restaurant was one of the key restaurants for folks to have a good lunch at. And Aunt Kay was the soup woman. Now, as we talked about repurposing or rethinking or re-envisioning, the Halley building is now a residence, and there are apartments there, managed by K&D, our sponsor.
And as we turn, we might say a little bit more later, but I did want to point out the downtown Heinens, now rehoused in the Cleveland Trust Bank building. It's been a Cleveland staple for years. So many people who came downtown did their banking at the Cleveland Trust, and now you can do your eating there as well. But one of the things to make sure you put on your list is to go in and look up. The rotunda is simply breathtaking.
It is. And here we're coming up onto the Halley's building there. There's a telltale H sign for the Halley.
There it is.
And then there, the apartments in there are sort of geared towards singles, married couples,
Young
families.
families,
If I remember right.
nesters.
Yes, empty nesters. Yeah,
One day.
maybe. Some of the key components of those particular apartments are fireplaces in the living room and washers and dryers in each one of the units.
So one of the things that we're all doing now is we're watching a lot of Netflix and other movies. So if you lived in the Halley building, you wouldn't have to rely on that. The city would be your entertainment every day.
So now, as we come to the conclusion of our tour, we want to thank Downtown Cleveland Alliance for the opportunity to celebrate Cleveland through this Sparks tour. We want to thank you especially for joining us on our journey into Tremont. Hopefully we've inspired you to don your comfortable shoes and put on a mask and come safely explore Cleveland, and we'll be cheering there with you.
And if you are in Tremont, make sure you bring your appetite. No trip to Tremont is complete without visiting those amazing restaurants.
Amen. Take care, be safe, be happy.
Be well.